Broadcaster Association Awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. The Grizz and the Cats, 3-1. And now on to conference play. And the Seahawks, they dropped their first game of the season. A ton of stuff for you, and it's almost all football related on a Monday afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you? It is Tootell and Nuanez on your radios, 102.9 ESPN, and on your televisions, SWX Montana. Hi, how are you? And across the world, on the internet, on the stream, on the YouTube channel. Go check us out there. We appreciate you being with us here on a Monday afternoon, a football-heavy Monday coming out of an interesting weekend on the gridiron across the state of Montana and beyond. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on the World Wide Web as well, 1029ESPN.com. There, you can listen to the stream. The stream is there all the time, and it is there thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. The phone number, if you want to call, 329-1899, 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. As we do every Monday, the first hour of every week is the Lithia Ford of Missoula Montana Football Hour. The Montana Football Hour, we're going to cover primarily Montana and Montana State, both teams coming off convincing victories, which were expected, but nonetheless gotten by both schools on Saturday. The Montana State Bobcats making a change at quarterback. Took 3 weeks. A 2-1 record, and Tucker Rovig came in and got a big win, played well in the football game. We'll go through that. We'll also go through what happened at the University of Montana in Missoula as the Grizzlies get a 20-point victory over Monmouth, and a couple of big performances turned in there, including Dalton Snead, who is your offensive player of the week in the Big Sky Conference, and Malik Flowers, who, on the back of a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, is the special teams player of the week in the Big Sky Conference. So 2 out of 3 players of the week on the Grizzlies this week. And of course, we will look forward to the beginning of conference football play in Northern Arizona for the Cats and UC Davis for the Grizzlies. At the top of the hour, we will get into the Seahawks. Monday at 5, Friday at 5, book it. We're talking Seahawks. The Seahawks coming out of the weekend off of their first loss to the Teddy Bridgewater-led New Orleans Saints. We will get to that, have some sound for you from that football game from Steve Rabel on the call, and we will also talk about Will Disley. Just all this guy does is score touchdowns. I mean, let's just book it. Doesn't matter if it's the last play of a game in a losing effort. He's going to get into the end zone. So we will cover that, and we will go through what happened around the state on the at the prep level as well, around the prep gridiron and around the Big Sky as well. So good to be with you. That is our show outlook. It's brought to us by MissoulaGutterCleaning.com. Nobody's more insured. Nobody's more fun. Get an estimate right now, MissoulaGutterCleaning.com. Colter, hi.
What's up, Gus?
Well, strong weekend, enjoyable, long, but
short.
Right.
Non-existent.
Long insofar there was a lot to be done in it. Like it was. I mean, I don't know if exhausting is overused, but it was a long weekend in that sense. But yes, sure. Short, and now we're back at it once again. But a good weekend, and let's start with the Montana Football Hour, presented as always by our friends at Lithia Ford of Missoula and Colter. We wanted to start today with Montana State because the Grizzlies won handily and had some very interesting things coming out of that game. Four touchdowns scored by tight ends, a trick play in there, a special teams touchdown. So there's a lot to go through. But the most interesting decision news shift of the weekend happened in Bozeman, where Casey Bauman was sat down and Tucker Rovig was called up, and Tucker Rovig started as quarterback for Montana State. This thing coming off of Casey Bauman, playing 3 games and going 2-1 with Montana State, just the way that you thought that Montana State should go. And Casey Bauman, on the positive side, didn't throw an interception, didn't have a turnover in this entire season to this point. In fact, had only given up even 1 sack to this point. On the downside, really no exceptional plays to be, looked at particularly. He had the 1 big touchdown against Texas Tech, which I thought was really good, but that's about as good as it got to Coy Steele for him. And he played at best okay. And that was that. And now Jeff Choate comes along and says, it's time for Tucker Rovig to play. And I don't know all the things that went into the process of the week to say, hey, let's see if Tucker Rovig, we want to have Tucker Rovig come in and do this thing. But that's what happened. So let's play some sound quickly for you. This from Jeff Choate on Tucker Rovig being the starting quarterback for Montana State. By the way, in a huge victory, 56-21, I think the final of this thing, and 460 some odd rushing yards on the ground for Montana State. But here we go. The big story at quarterback from Jeff Choate.
Tucker operated at a high level today, took what was available from the defense, threw accurate passes, and again had great protection from our offensive line.
Did you see more poise out of Tucker than before, maybe, or just more command?
Well, he and I had a conversation on Wednesday, I guess it was, and I basically said, hey, you've let this thing slip through your hand twice now. This opportunity may not come again, and you just got to believe in yourself and go play. And I think he did that, and so really proud of the way he performed today, and. That's to take nothing away from Casey, but I think Tucker operated at a really high level today.
What went into the decision to go with Tucker?
A variety of things, really. Kind of our last non-conference game, the last opportunity that if we were going to look at somebody else, this was the time to do it. I did not want to go into preparation for NAU with indecision about that position, and really felt like, quite honestly, Tucker had performed at a higher level over the last couple of weeks in practice, and so he deserved an opportunity to get a start. And he clearly maximized that today. 21 of 27, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 221 yards. That's a pretty efficient day.
Going forward, just kind of what do you maybe see between the two of them? Maybe who?
I think those guys are going to continue to support one another, continue to compete against one another, and our team they'll rally behind whoever's back there as the trigger guy. I promise you that.
So there you go, Jeff Choate. Saying the thing we didn't want going into conference play was to have any indecision at the position. And it seems to me like very much what they have going into conference play is indecision at the position. Although,
don't you think though him saying that is basically saying it without saying that Tucker Rovig is the quarterback?
100%. There's
no indecision. He gave Tucker Rovig a chance and he threw 4 touchdowns. He's going to be the guy.
He's going to be the guy, and he's very complimentary of the way Tucker played, and he was asked today, and we may bring you this sound later on in the week, but about this again. This press conference that you just heard was a post-game press conference.
Yes, yep.
And then today was the sort of the Monday football press conference, and he was asked point blank, will Tucker start Saturday? And he said, we'll see. And then went on from there, and we'll bring you that sound as well. But effectively, he is saying it without saying it, that Tucker Rovig is the guy. I thought he took great advantage of the opportunity that he was given. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like, he's going through all the good things because he probably is going to be the guy. Do you want to play this one other piece of sound on this first, and that before we keep talking about it?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. One more piece of sound for you from Jeff Choate on Tucker Rovig.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Why do you start playing better football once you're not the guy, And let's maybe take another approach. And so, it's hard to say. I think there's a lot of things that go into that. And one of the things that he did tell me was that he felt like he was so worried about Casey that he didn't focus on him. And that if he had the opportunity to do it again, he would have just worried about himself and not worried about what Casey was doing, the kind of throws he was making, what his completion percentage was in practice, and just do what he had to do. And I think that was a very mature statement on his part, and I think he's focusing on him right now.
So there you go. A guy who has clearly performed better, at least in practice, the last 3 weeks since he did not win the job than he was performing before Casey Bauman won the job. Also, it seems to me has to be a bit of a belief in the lackluster, performances of Casey Bauman to this point as the starter. And the irony of this is at the point, what was it, 5 weeks ago now, maybe 6, that Casey Bauman was named the starter. He was asked about, what kind of leash would he be on, et cetera, and I'm paraphrasing. And Jeff Choate said, we don't want him looking over his shoulder. Once we pick the guy, he's going to be the guy, and that's what it's going to be. And then you get through 3 games at 2-1 in your conference schedule, and now you go with the other guy. And now, regardless, like you said, it seems clear as day that Tucker Rovig is going to be the quarterback now next week going against Northern Arizona. Based on, the inferences that we're making here. But it also is clearly a change and I don't know if it's an upheaval, but it is an indecision or a multiple decision, however you want to talk about it, at the quarterback position, which is purportedly exactly what was hoping to not have to happen, what was going to be avoided. And now here we are, and we're going into NAU. It's Monday, 6 days from the start of conference football, 5 days, and officially there has been no announcement as to who the starting quarterback is for Montana State.
We've talked about this before, but Jeff Choate is such a defensive coach. It's not that he doesn't have offensive acumen. I actually think he has more offensive acumen than people give him credit for, particularly when it comes to the gap scheme and run game stuff that they run. And we'll get into a little bit of that, too, Montana State's ability to dominate on the ground and how, I hope you have a pretty good day as a quarterback if the running backs rush for 450 yards.
Good gracious.
But,
well, your course are going to rush for that much when you have Troy Anderson and Isaiah Fonse.
They were out. Right, exactly. But what I'm getting at here, though, is that I think that Jeff Choate treats all the internal competition and position battles on Montana State the same. I think that's great when you're talking about every position on the field, except for maybe quarterback. A lot of times, because you can get so many different reps at different positions, being the starter isn't as paramount of importance. If you're the backup middle linebacker, like right now, Callahan O'Reilly is Montana State's backup middle linebacker. He's playing like 45 snaps a game. He's playing just as much as the starter, maybe like 2 or 3 snaps less. That's it. So you can get so many reps if you're a backup. It's not the case with quarterbacks, but I think that it's almost as if they wanted Casey Bauman to navigate the first 3 games of the schedule to somehow challenge Tucker Rovig. It seems as if this isn't just a week decision, like that it just happened last week. It's as if they've been planning this for a long time.
Let's play the sound from today, because I think this fleshes out that very same thing. The question very simply is, will Tucker Rovig start Saturday?
We'll see. I think that's one thing that, making change. This is a people business. Let me just kind of back up for a second, Aaron. This is a people business. So when you make decisions that affect people, those aren't easy, But I think I've got a track record that shows that I'm willing to make tough decisions, and I'm going to do what's best for our organization regardless. And heck, that might be me deciding one day I'm not doing a good enough job. And I told Leon he's never going to have to fire me. If I don't think I'm doing the job, I'll walk away. And I think I owe that to this program and to these kids. And if it means having to make a change at quarterback or personnel changes on our staff, I'm willing to do that if I believe it's the right thing to do.
It's the truth. What he just said is the truth.
Yes.
It was a little bit, a little hyperbole at the end there, but he has made the changes. And in the moment, within the singular moment, it's so easy to judge everything. You can't really judge any of this stuff until we have a full. So it seemed like such a rash decision last year to fire Bob Cole when he has only had the job for 8 or 9 months, and you're 8 games into his first season as the passing game coordinator. Seems rash. Now that we see Matt Miller's scheme, it's not. It was the right decision. But a lot of times it takes so long for these things to play out. We'll see. It might take a long time for this quarterback decision to play out as well.
I would like to call to attention the NFL as a matter of metaphor for the 2 directions that things can go and how you can err on either side. What has it been for the Cleveland Browns forever? They never have any consistency at coach or quarterback, right. And they keep making changes and starting over, and this is now the new foundation, and now the new foundation, and the reason that they always stink is because they never have anybody there, because it's just a revolving door. Then you go to Jacksonville, and maybe not wanting to make the same mistake, they draft what they hope to be a franchise guy in Blake Bortles in the top 5 of picks of the NFL draft, and he's sort of not quite there, and then when it's evident 3 or 4 years into his career that he's just simply not the guy, they stay with him, wanting him to be the guy, and he never is. And they build around him and build a great defense, and he's just never going to come through. And finally, 7 years or whatever it is after the fact, they make a change. And you go, why in the world did you wait so long? You may have squandered your opportunity with a great defense and so forth to be a Super Bowl contending type of team because you held on. Well, it's easy to throw stones in both directions. The team that waited too long to make a change and the teams that always making changes and has, quote-unquote, no consistency. In this instance, the obvious thing, if you're going to be critical, is to say, how can you have a team that's going to have any sort of cohesiveness, and consistency when you're making changes to the staff, almost all the time, every year. There's been multiple guys, even within seasons, guys changing on the staff. And when you have, a different quarterback playing every week or whatever it is, every couple of weeks. That's the critical side. The other, the positive side, and this is what Jeff Choate is getting to, and to your point, Coulter, accurately so, is as you've gone through the first 3 weeks in the month of the season, and Casey Bauman is starting and playing okay football, and Tucker Rovig's doing whatever he's doing in practice, and you finally come to a point and you're convinced Tucker Rovig is our better option than is Casey Bauman, despite everything that you said before, to go ahead and say, we are going to go with Tucker now, is not an easy decision to make. And while it may look like indecision or inconsistency or going back on what you said or whatever it is, it's also perhaps very much the right choice to make. And I will say, much as many mistakes as Casey Bauman hasn't made, he has done nothing where I sit there and go, how could you do this? I mean, how could you do this? The only qualifier I'll say, it's Tootell Nuanez, ESPN Radio, on that is this, Coulter, and you said this, and you're very right to point this out. He went 21 of 27 and threw 4 touchdowns against a completely outclassed Norfolk State team.
Well, they were just awful. They were really bad on defense.
Bad.
Juwan Carter kept him in the game because he's a tough quarterback. He's good. He's a good player. And they had a couple receivers that were mismatch problems, and we're going to get into that later on in the week as far as where Montana State maybe – they're operating at a really high level in a couple areas, and they're not in a couple other areas. It's the same thing with the Grizz, and that's the evolution of a football season, certainly. Sure. But Norfolk State's defense was not good.
No.
And in Montana State, they found a schematic weakness, and they gashed them. I mean, they averaged 8.6 yards per carry. They had a couple long runs, but it really was like they were getting 9, 10, 11, 12, bam, bam, bam. I mean, Lane Sumner scored a 58-yard touchdown, but other than that, the Cats were legitimately averaging 7 or 8 yards per pop running the football.
So when you talk about the third most rushing yards in the history of your university, okay, 468, was it?
449.
449.
Yep.
449 on the ground. 3 different guys rushing for 100 yards.
Yep.
Did you hear that? 3 different guys. Neither of them, Troy Anderson or Isaiah Ifanse.
Or Carl Tucker, who's also a senior.
Right.
And Logan Jones went out at halftime. So now, and Demarius Hosey, they didn't play him because they're trying to maintain his red shirt. So now you're talking about, this is not hyperbole. This was Montana State's, Logan Jones is their 3rd string running back. Lane Sumner is their 6th string running back, and Shane Perry, who is a red shirt freshman walk-on from Danville, California, is their 7th string running back. And he rushed for 113 yards in the game.
Here's Jeff Choate on 300-yard rushers against Norfolk State.
Yeah, they were an impressive group today for sure. Quite honestly, we saw some things different than what we thought we were going to see from what we'd seen on film from Norfolk State. They've primarily been a post-safety defense. They played a lot of quarters, a lot of cover 4, a lot of split safety looks, which lightens the box in the run game. And so I think that played into our hands a little bit there. I can't say enough about really Logan Jones, Shane Perry, and Lane Sumner. Logan went out of the game. Shane and Lane haven't played a lot of football for us. And they just stepped in. The O-line picked up their end of the bargain, and those guys continued to operate. And so really proud of that group of guys. Makes you nervous when you go in for the better part of 2.5 games. We haven't played our best 2 guys, 22 and 15. And we've been able to go 2-0 in that stretch. And we'll hopefully get those guys back as we go into league play.
I mean, that is something. And by the way, Logan Jones, his 101 yards on 7 carries, the longest of which was 36 yards. He averaged 14.4 yards a carry, and to your point, basically ran for 14.4 yards 7 times.
Logan Jones,
it's unbelievable.
Logan Jones tears his abductor in his abdomen right before fall camp last year, so then he misses the first 8 games of the year. Then he plays against Idaho State, and then the next week against Cal Poly, he scores a touchdown. The following week at Northern Colorado, he scores a touchdown, and then against the Grizzlies, he scores 2 touchdowns. Then he shuts it down, takes the 4-game stopping point, and decides to take his red shirt so he can return for this 5th year. In Montana State's FCS opener against Southeast Missouri State, he takes fly sweep 55 yards for a touchdown. Last week against Western Illinois, takes 87 yards for a touchdown. This game rushes for 101 yards on 7 carries. This kid had, over his last 26 carries, from the moment he came back from that injury till now, he had a streak of 26 carries, for 266 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
That is pretty remarkable. It's Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Okay, let's put a bow, Coulter, just on the on Montana State. We're going to talk more about Northern Arizona as the week carries on, getting into conference play.
There's a lot to talk about here, too, with this quarterback situation, with the Troy Anderson situation. I mean, I think you can't underrate how they truly did Norfolk State, again, is not good, but they just won a game running the ball with their guys that were never even supposed to be in the plan to ever play. Yeah. Troy Anderson and Isaiah Fonse back is a huge shot in the arm for any team. If Montana State gets them back and they keep operating at this level, in the rush game, it's going to be hard to beat.
Well, it's going to be a different world when you're playing Big Sky Conference opponents, in particular Northern Arizona. But obviously on the ground, a great way to do it. You got guys rested, and you made a change at quarterback. And now we will see if Tucker Rovig against Northern Arizona can resemble anything like what Tucker Rovig was against Norfolk State. It is the Montana Football Hour. The first hour of every show every week is brought to us by Lithia Ford of Missoula. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll get into the University of Montana. Bobby Houck going to talk to us about the win over Monmouth, as well as how to finish a football game, which obviously the Montana Grizzlies did do very well on Saturday. Hey, if you haven't been, you should go check out the Silver Slipper. The Silver Slipper. It's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you are looking for. Right now, Silver Slipper is your football headquarters. They have a free shuttle. You ready? Free shuttle to every Grizz home game, 56 televisions to watch sports on, special drinks every day, liquor store, and Tarantino's Pizzeria. They also have the friendliest staff in town. Silver Slipper has all you need to watch your favorite games. And the Silver Slipper shuttle will also get you home for free. So hang out, watch some football, take the shuttle home. The shuttle operates until 2 a.m. every single day. So visit thesilverslipperlounge.com for more. Stop by today and see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets across the street from Walmart on Brooks.
Hey everybody, Ryan Tootell, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate. In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Quench your thirst at Town Pump. Pepsi and Mountain Dew 1 liters are buy 2, get 1 free. Plus Aquafina 1 liter water 2 for $2.50. Whether you're hungry, thirsty, or need a quick pick-me-up, you can find what you're looking for at your Town Pump. Right down the road.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Are you interested in putting solar panels on your roof? Do you want the latest on Montana's renewable energy policies? The Montana Renewable Energy Association is a leading voice for renewable energy education and advocacy in Montana. From community-based clean energy events to advocating at the Montana legislature, they work to ensure Montana's future is powered by the sun, wind, and earth. Find out more about MREA and join as a member by visiting montanarenewables.org or calling 406-214-9405.
Dare to Laugh with Broad Comedy, an all-female comedy troupe touring the state to benefit the ACLU of Montana. Broad Comedy has been producing snarky, provocative, and lovable all-women's comedy and musical satire since 2001. With the Broads, nothing is sacred, except an unflinching look at America today. It's outrageous, it's community, it's a party on a stage. Dare to Laugh is Friday, September 27th at the MCT Center for the Performing Arts. For tickets and more information, visit aclumontana.org.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Montana and Montana State each posted impressive wins to close out their non-conference play on Saturday afternoon. The Bobcats rushed for 449 yards, the third best total in program history, on their way to a 56-21 victory over Norfolk State in Bozeman. The Grizzlies put down the hammer in the fourth quarter, executing a pair of drives in the final frame to emerge with a 47-27 win over Monmouth. Coulter, tell them about the Grizz.
senior quarterback Dalton Snead completed 30 of 40 passes for 334 yards and 4 touchdowns, including a pair of touchdown passes each to senior tight end Colin Bingham and sophomore tight end Bryson Deming. Snead is the Big Sky Offensive Player of the Week. Montana sophomore running back Marcus Knight rushed 21 times for 148 yards and a touchdown as the Grizz piled up 221 yards on the ground and 579 yards of total offense. And senior Dante Olson piled up 13 tackles as the Grizz held the number 4 rushing attack in the FCS to just 81 yards.
Also, Malik Flowers, a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in that game. Montana State rested starting running back Isaiah Fonse and Do Everything Jr. Troy Anderson, yet still saw 3 running backs surpass 100 yards for the first time in program history in the same game. MSU sophomore Tucker Rovig led the Bobcat offense at quarterback with 39 touchdowns and 670 yards of total offense. Shane Perry, Lane Sumner, and Logan Jones each had 100 yards for the
This
Cats.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Welcome back as we continue in the Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. It is Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Hi, how are you? Great to be with you, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Coulter, we talked about the Cats and their impressive win, but also some questions now, especially at quarterback in the first segment. Let's talk about the Grizz and their close and then not as close victory over Monmouth. I thought you said in the pregame show on Saturday that we did that you thought that Monmouth was going to be better than people thought that they would be. And I think that turned out to me to be very true. Look, some games you can see a team that doesn't play very well, that's a clearly better team, and that's why the game is close, and then they kind of figure it out and stretch it out. I thought Montana played a pretty good game for the most part all the way through, and I thought Monmouth was just ready to go, well coached, and had some really good players, which we'll get into. And then the Grizzlies, who sum total clearly were the better team, started to assert themselves and create some space at the end, started to lean, especially with their offensive line and running game on the Monmouth defense. But through 3 quarters and change in that football game, I thought Monmouth both played very well, acquitted themselves very well on the football field, and also took great advantage of a couple mistakes that Montana did make to continue to make this a game winner. It was 6 points at one point in the fourth quarter after Monmouth scored their final touchdown on a Dalton Snead turnover.
I predicted Montana would own the line of scrimmage, particularly when the Grizz were on defense. And Monmouth's offensive line was a lot better than I thought they would be. Mm-hmm. I also thought that Montana would have a definitive advantage on the perimeter, which they did. But I also thought it was a brilliant ability to adjust and read the defense by Dalton Snead, the quarterback, as well as Tim Rosenbaugh, the offensive coordinator, because Monmouth was way better on the back end defensively than I expected them to be. Justin Terry had a great game. Anthony Budd had a great game. Both those DBs really stood out to me, and they did a pretty good job of corralling Sammy Akem, Samari Torres. Sammy Akem disappeared for a middle part of this game, and that hasn't happened yet this year. So testament to those Monmouth DBs. But when you take something like that away on the outside, now the middle of the field's wide open, right, and the tight ends have the best day they've had since the reinstitution of the position. Colin Bingham goes 4 catches, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bryson Deming catches 4 passes. He also scores his first 2 career touchdowns. So huge day for the tight ends. It was great offensive game plan by the Grizz. And I thought that also this was definitely at least the first step towards flushing some of the demons of a year ago. Montana, they come out of the locker room, they go score, stop, score. and they have a commanding lead. They're up, I think, 33-14. 33-14. And then Monmouth comes storming back, and they cut it all the way to 6. And you're thinking, well, are the Grizz going to melt down here? I mean, you had Dalton Sneed maybe fighting for a couple extra yards. He didn't need to. He coughs the ball up. Now all of a sudden, Monmouth's got a lot of momentum. They got multiple different marches going on, and they score twice. And nope, instead the Grizz just slammed the door shut. And I thought it was a great finish. I thought, by and large, it was one of Montana's better performances under this new regime.
What I thought was great for both teams is that there was moments where, for Montana, they had opportunities to really separate themselves out and put this game away, and Monmouth answered the call and scored touchdowns and made stops that they absolutely had to have just to stay in it. For the Grizzlies, when a team starts to do that, it's easy to tighten up, and a lot of teams do. And look at Washington State, for crying out loud, on Saturday night against UCLA. By the way, if you didn't see that game, good gracious, go watch that thing. But it happens all the time across sports, not just football. A team's ahead, feels like they were ahead quite a bit, should be ahead more. All of a sudden, the thing tightens up, and then they start to melt down. Montana, that thing tightened up a couple different times. Once right before the end of the half, and then once again on after the Snead turnover. And immediately, what do? They turned around. After it was 33-27, 6 plays, 62 yards in a minute and 43 seconds. That's an answer. You know what I mean? That is going back down and go, we aren't worried about anything. I think Dalton Snead was perfect on that drive in terms of his passing after he made the big mistake. And you could see it. Dalton, as soon as that ball was coughed up, his hands were on his head, and he just, you knew that he was realizing that the game was well in hand as long as you don't do what he just did, and now it becomes a question. But he bounced back with the rest of that offense and made plays, and then ultimately Montana able to score again after that on a pass from Dalton Snead to Bryson Deming for his second of the game kind of later on in the fourth quarter. Also impressive was Marcus Knight. Marcus Knight in the first half didn't do much, only got 6 carries, I think, in the first half. But in the second half, looked fantastic, as did the offensive line. Let's hear from Bobby Houck, just his general thoughts on the victory over Monmouth.
Yeah, you always have to fight for it. It was a good win for our team over a Monmouth team that I think they feel like they're a playoff caliber football team, and they might be right. They're awfully good. They're well coached. They just do a really nice job. They play hard. Schematically, they're very sound. They did some things to try to manage the game that were effective. And, from our standpoint, it's great to win. And we did a lot of good things as well. But there's certainly a lot we need to clean up moving into next week, or we're not going to survive next week.
So, how pleased with the win, but as always, plenty to work on. You can go figure it out. But again, I thought that they did really good. Let's hear just one more piece from Bobby Houck specifically on the finish, which was the bugaboo of this team last year through the non-conference schedule. For what it's worth, has certainly been rectified through the first 4 games. Yeah,
we really had 3 efficient drives till we coughed it up. So, those are the mistakes I'm talking about we can't make. But Dalton was really good. He did a nice job. Aside from the one play, he was awfully good. When you need it and you can go down the field and get points, whether it was coming out of the locker room in the third quarter or those 2 drives you're talking about, thought it was great.
And aside from that fumble, Dalton Snead was very good. In fact, so good that he is your Big Sky Conference Offensive Player of the Week. 75% completion percentage, 30 of 40 in this game, 334 yards, a touchdown. Had the fumble and then an interception as well, but also had a secondary assist, as you say in the hockey world, where he throws it to Samori Torre, who ultimately gets credit for a touchdown, 1-for-1 on the day for Samori Torre, a perfect QB rating for the wide receiver, throwing a touchdown pass on a little bit of a trick play as well. So all in all, a good game. And Coulter, again, if you weren't there, or if you weren't paying all the way attention, Kenji Behar was phenomenal.
Great,
as a quarterback for Monmouth.
Oh, absolutely. I said to you in the press box, I think that Well, it's hard to quantify how good a guy that doesn't play in the Big Sky would be in the Big Sky, and ranking a guy like saying, man, he'd be the 6th best quarterback in the Big Sky Conference, which I think that's about where he would be at. I'm not saying that like he's average. I'm saying that like he is outstanding because guess what? The 5 best quarterbacks in the Big Sky are 5 of the 10 best quarterbacks in the country.
Right.
Honestly, you could probably argue that 5 of the 7 best quarterbacks in the country play in the Big Sky Conference. Mm-hmm. Eric Berry, Jake Mayer, Dalton Snead are all certainly right there, and Case Cookus are all certainly right there for sure as nationally elite players. But I thought Barhar and Kevin Thompson from Sac State is knocking on the door of that too. Right. Barhar is much similar to Kevin Thompson, though, in the fact that he's a big, strong guy who can step up in the pocket and throw it. He was very confident, I thought. But I think this also – let's talk schematics just for a brief minute here.
Yeah.
On one side – I think that Dalton Snead is operating at an all-time high efficiency in terms of how comfortable he is with this offense. With the weapons that Montana has, and we'll play some sound about Dalton Snead from that later on in the week, it's almost like playing point guard. What they run is such a quick-hitting version of the RPO offense, but it's just like I always talk about with the air raid or the triple option, regardless of the way that you're gaining the yards, the reads are the same. If you make the right read, you will operate at a 75% efficiency level. You will, if you make the right decision. I mean, half of these Dalton Sneads were just throw it out to the flat. Let Gabe Social, let Jerry Lou McGee, let Samari Torrey make a play. Right. That's outstanding.
I mean, the first touchdown to Bryce Deming, I mean, he could have punted the ball to him. I mean, it was a complete bust, and Deming was wide open in the seam, and it was just done deal.
But then on the other side, I think you really saw the chess match. Montana is having a hard time getting pressure. Their defensive line's playing really well against the run, but they're having a hard time getting true pressure on the quarterback. They sent the house early, and they got to Kenji Barhar, and they got 2 sacks. One of them was by Dante Olson. One of them was by Patrick O'Connell. But then they started dropping 8, and then Barhar got hot. And then they started lighting him up again and bringing pressure. And he didn't flinch. And he went on a nice little streak there where he was moving the ball up and down the field. And it looked as if Montana's secondary was getting gashed, but they're not. When you're blitzing like that, everybody's on an island. If the quarterback stands in there, takes the hit, and throws on a dime like he was, there's nothing you can really do about it. Right. It's kind of the give and take. But I think that's one of the places where Montana really has to figure something out. They got to figure out how to fabricate some pass rush where it's somewhere in between. Because I think if you drop 8, you're really vulnerable in the run game. And if you blitz, you're going to be really vulnerable, especially against veteran quarterbacks like Jake Mayer.
Well, and yeah, exactly. This week is I mean, Kenji Bayar, good as he was, it's going to be a whole different animal this week going against the Conference Player of the Year in the Big Sky coming into the season in Jake Mayer. Let's hear a little bit from Colin Bingham. Colin Bingham had his probably biggest day, at least in terms of certainly his scoring as a Grizzly. Full reception, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a touchdown on maybe the most fun, one of the 2 most fun plays of the game for Grizz fans. A trick play where Dalton Snead throws it into the flat to Samari Torrey, who was backing up the whole time. And when you saw this play develop from the press box, you're like, oh, this is a double pass right here. And sure enough, throws it up top to Colin Bingham, and the senior wide receiver catches a very nice touchdown on a trick play. Here's what he had to say about it.
I mean, it set up really well how we wanted it to. I know Bryson had a really good block on the outside to keep Samari there, and the O-line did a good job, and then Samari just threw it perfect. Just had to go make the play for my boys.
There you go. Got to go make the play for your boys, and he did just that. Coulter, like you were saying when you talked about the schematics, well, okay, are you going to bring pressure? Are you going to back off? Are you going to do some of both? If you can't get there with just, a 4-man pass rush, what do you have to do to make a quarterback uncomfortable? Kevin Callahan, the Monmouth head coach, had this to say about mitigating Montana's pressure.
Well, we started throwing the ball a little bit quicker, trying to stay out of pure drop-back stuff. I thought Kenji did a really good job of getting rid of the ball quickly. We were able to get the ball out on the perimeter a little bit into the hands of our receivers, who were able to make some plays after the catch.
So there you go. I mean, that is the new offensive line, isn't it? The quick pass. I mean,
yes.
You just get back, get rid of it, 3-step drop, 1-step drop, no step drop, whatever. Just stand there in the shotgun, turn your feet 90 degrees, and fire.
And that's why watching what's happening at Montana State right now is so fascinating because, like I said, coming into this year, we were talking about this in the summer, we're going to have to find new measuring sticks for what we consider statistically successful in the pass rush game because the days of a guy getting 15 sacks in an 11 or 12 game college football season are almost behind us. That said, Bryce Stirk might just go ahead and do it anyways. Right. He's already got 9 sacks this year, leading the country by a wide margin. But getting to the quarterback and hitting him is the new gauge of if you're getting pressure on the quarterback because I do think that, like with a guy like Bahar, I don't really know how you get there. I don't know how you sack him really more than they did. They had 3 sacks on him. He's a mobile guy who can get rid of the ball really quick. He knows where his reads are. He's a 3-year starter. He's a 5th-year senior. That's going to be the challenge going forward, especially when you're playing a guy like this weekend. That is their biggest challenge is how do you get to Jake Mayer without letting him light you up? Because if you blitz Jake Mayer like they blitzed the second half Saturday, good luck. I mean, he is going to dice you. He's going to complete 80% of those passes unless you're hitting him. And that's what I'm saying. If you are going to blitz, then you got to get there. You at least got to disrupt for the quarterback. Right. And that's one thing the Cats are doing at such an elite level. It's not just the sack numbers. 3 straight games, you're looking at the opposing team's quarterback on the sidelines when they zoom in on him. These guys are hurting units. These guys are getting hit some more. And I think that is the new gauge of how well you're pressuring the quarterback.
It's Tootell and Nuanez, ESPN Radio. It is the Montana Football Hour. One more piece of sound for you from Bobby Hauck, this time on the tight ends, who, again, 4 touchdowns from your tight ends. It's a pretty big day by anybody's estimation, and certainly since the reintroduction of the position is in the traditional sense under Bobby Hauck. Here's what he had to say about his tight ends on Saturday.
Yeah, the tight ends and Mitch Roberts had a big day, and everybody of those 3, Mitch and our 2 tight ends, really caught the ball well and got good hard yards after catch and after contact. And Dalton was seeing it well, found the right guys. It was fun. It was I thought the offensive coaches had a nice plan and did a really good job against them.
So there you go. And we a guy we didn't even talk about yet, but is Mitch Roberts, who had his breakout day as a Grizzly wide receiver, just the redshirt freshman, but 5 receptions, 80 yards, led the Grizzlies in receiving in terms of yardage. Jerry Lou McGee had 1 more reception, which, of course, he did. 6 for JLM, but 5 receptions for 80 yards for Mitch Roberts in this game, and a coming out party of sorts. And when you saw him, we've seen him in practice, Coulter. We've heard, you kind of hear the rumblings about, hey, man, this kid looks pretty good, and we obviously know the genetics that he's coming from and the history and all that. But when you finally see him play and see him catch a ball on the field, you go, oh yeah, this kid is gonna probably catch a lot of footballs and do some damage for the Montana in the pass game over the next 3.5 seasons, and we'll see how much that can continue now into conference play.
It's great when there's guys that have standout off seasons that then get a chance to prove it during game days. Because so often when you're just a redshirt freshman, you're kind of toiling there, especially when you're in a group that has great depth like Montana's receivers. Because we cover this thing year-round now, and we're talking about guys during spring ball, we're going to spring practices, we're going to fall camp. Sometimes it makes me feel silly when I'm talking about how this guy's been standing out. I love this guy. This guy's making I had Mitch Roberts as my number 1 sleeper on my Skyline Sports Top 10 for Grizz Sleepers. I said, this is the kid that's maybe not on people's radars that's going to be good. He's going to play. And then when that guy ends up not playing, not because of his effort, but just because of the stack position.
He's a wide receiver on the Grizzlies.
Right. It makes you feel silly. I love that Mitch Roberts is getting playing time because not only is he talented, he's got great bloodlines, like you said, great athletic genes from both sides of his family, but he's a tremendously hard worker too. And that's how he's entrenched himself, is by doing the little things right. And I really think that this is the brilliance of the Bobby Hauck program, the system that he runs in terms of the internal competition that he demands. It would be easy to use the converted quarterback partial scholarship guy from Missoula to motivate the 6'3" stud who runs like a deer like Samori Toure, but not have both of them improve to the level that they have. It worked both ways. You pit Mitch Roberts against Samori Toure, so now Samori Toure has got a fire under his butt. He wants to work harder. But then now Mitch Roberts is confident because he's like, well, it's spring ball, and I'm getting reps over Samori Toure. He's like a 3-year starter. I must be doing great. And then all of a sudden now when Torrey gets taken away by the defense, like it happened on Saturday, now Mitch Roberts is going to go have himself a day. What do you have, 5 catches for 80 yards? I mean,
5 for 80, yep.
It was a career day for him, and that's that's where that's the brilliance of the model, right? Is not anybody being selfish about it. Both of you get better, and guess what? When it's your turn, you'll get a chance.
And let's be clear, Samori Toure was not taken away. He was slinging it 1-for-1 for 24 yards and a touchdown.
Indeed.
Your backup quarterback, Samori Toure. Okay, quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about the Montana Grizzlies, a big day in the special teams world, and also, we got to talk about this Dagnab cannon. Because somebody's just going to just pass out from fear from this thing, okay? So we'll get into that. It is the Montana Football Hour, and it is presented every week by Lithia Ford of Missoula. The Montana Football Hour brought to us by Lithia Ford, and right now, at Lithia Ford, you can get 0% for 72 months on the 2019 Ford F-150. The Ford F-150 makes tough tasks look easy, whether it's working the job or heading out on a weekend of recreation. Also available, the all-new 2019 Ford Ranger at just 1.9% for 60 months. The all-new Ranger tested under more extreme conditions than you would likely ever encounter. Set a date for your next adventure. The Ranger is ready to get you there. Lithia Ford, across from Super Walmart on Brooks, has a huge inventory of new and used cars and trucks. Visit LithiaFordMissoula.com for more information. Search new and used inventory, financing specials, and get yourself in a Lithia Ford today. Lithia Ford is an official sponsor of the Montana Grizzlies and Tootell Nuanez Montana Football Hour. The Polaris Factory Authorized Clearance is here. The world's best-selling off-road lineup is priced to move with financing as low as 3.99% and rebates up to $3,500. Live life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. The best deals of the year are happening now. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $3,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Factory Authorized Clearance. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Kurtz Polaris is now showcasing all of the new 2020 Polaris off-road vehicles to be the first to get a great deal on brand new state-of-the-art Polaris vehicles at Kurtz Polaris. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. Rebates valid in U.S. through 9/30/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Financing offer valid on 2015s through 2020s. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
It's a rite of passage. That first bank account. Explore the great options for your young adult with a visit to Farmer State Bank. Online at farmersebank.com or in person at any of our 9 locations in western Montana. Our checking and savings accounts are designed to fit any lifestyle and budget with the flexibility, innovations, and security today's consumers demand. Start out right with Farmer State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907. Member FDIC.
School buses are taking to the roads, and they mean something very important. That is, bus drivers, educators, and parents doing their part to get children to and from school safely. Montana motorists share the responsibility to Montana's kids. Be aware this school year, you are sharing the road with our future. Flashing yellow lights alert drivers that the bus is preparing to stop. Flashing red lights means stop. Children are getting on or off the bus. Watch the lights and obey the signals to help keep our community safe for kids. This school safety reminder was brought to you by the Montana School Bus Contractors Association and this station.
This is Tom Scared for the Borgen Project. Each year, nearly 2 million children die from preventable diseases. Each day, 30,000 people die from hunger. 500 each hour are children. The Borgen Project is turning this around. We need your help. To learn more, go to borgenproject.org. That's BORGEN project.org.
Are you interested in putting solar panels on your roof? Do you want the latest on Montana's renewable energy policies? The Montana Renewable Energy Association is a leading voice for renewable energy education and advocacy in Montana. From community-based clean energy events to advocating at the Montana legislature, they work to ensure Montana's future is powered by the sun, wind, and earth. Find out more about MREA and join as a member by visiting montanarenewables.org or calling 406-214-9405.
Tootell and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Now, I don't know if this is Future Island, but I can't hear this song and not think that it is Future Island. You ever listened?
I don't know what that
specifically
is.
watched?
I don't know what Future Island is.
Yeah. Get yourself on the YouTube. Future
It's like
Island.
a cartoon or something?
No, it's a band.
Oh, okay.
Future Island and I don't know, their Dave Matthews performance. It's pretty rare. Like, here's the thing, man. Football and live music. Like, you can do a lot of things with smoke and fire and lights and everything like that, but when it comes right down to it, to like playing the music and the people on the guitars and the drums and on the microphones singing and doing the thing, 99.999% are pretty much the same. And it's relatively rare that you see somebody do something that you've just never seen before.
Okay.
If you have not seen Future
Island's
you
one
will
of
see
those.
something you've
Okay.
just never seen
All right.
before.
What's that? Jason Isbell and the Foreign Unit concert Friday night? It's
Yes.
phenomenal.
Oof.
What a week of music last week in Missoula.
Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. It's the Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Hey, have we told you? Well, we have, but we're going to tell you again. Instagram, people. We are on the picture social media now. Isn't that the deal? Filters, photos.
You got it.
1,000 words. What do you get? What do you get on Twitter? 100 characters?
No, 280 now. They doubled
280 characters, which is about 7 words. This is 1,000 words, and it's called a picture. Instagram, at 1029 ESPN. That's the handle on Instagram. It's also the handle on Twitter. Very, very convenient. The overlap there at 1029 ESPN. Go check us out. Also, excited about this. We are launching Wednesday a brand new podcast series. It is the FCS Speculators, a betting podcast with a Vegas eye on the Big Sky and FCS conference. Coulter and I going to navigate you through the waters of favorites, lines, over-unders, and expectations at the specifically Big Sky level and the FCS level, the top 25 in the country, broadly speaking. So if that's something that's interesting to you, that you're looking for, there's not a lot of information out there about it. We will do our best to actually at least inform you on the goings-ons that way. So FCS Speculators, a betting podcast, will come to you starting Wednesday. We'll release the first one. We'll look forward to having that out there, and then you can check that out and decide, how dumb we really are. That's out there for you to make your determination on. So go check that out. Coulter, 2 of the 3 players of the week. You get a player of the week at 3 spots across the Big Sky Conference every week. Offense, defense, and special teams. And the offensive and special teams players of the week, both Montana Grizzlies this week. Dalton Snead, again, 30 of 40 for 334 yards and 4 touchdowns, is the offensive player of the week. And Malik Flowers, who had the longest touchdown in modern Grizzly history, 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, is the special teams player of the week. And again, it's the touchdown is damaged, and that was one of the answers that Montana made when they were down, or when they had given up a score. Excuse me, the first kickoff coming out of the touchdown. Oh no, not so fast. You're not in this one. Malik Flowers is 12 yards in a cloud of dust, or 12 seconds in a cloud of dust, 100 yards for a touchdown. It was impressive because he was also untouched, and for as fast as he is and as well as he navigated it, it was also blocked up beautifully, and you talked about the scheme on that play. But then the lingering effect of that was 40-yard basically spot of field position from there on out every time you got the football if you're the Grizzlies, because they just went, oh, no. We're not going to go North Alabama here and keep tempting fate again and again and again. We will boot it up to the tight ends, who had not only catching 4 touchdowns, but how many kick returns did Bryson Deming and Colin Bingham get? I mean, it's just the big fellas, heaven out there, fielding kickoffs that were, blooped up at the 25-yard line, and that, get 10 yards, get to run somebody over and feel very good about themselves. But the special teams, particularly in the kick game, the kick-receive game, at its all-time high Saturday for Montana.
Yeah, Bobby Houck talked about exactly that in the postgame.
We tell these guys in camp, if you're any good, they'll quit kicking it to you. And, there's a couple of things. One, some schools, like when I got to Colorado had been 20 years without returning a kickoff for a touchdown. I mean, it's hard to do. And we kind of expect our guys to do it here and there within a season. So, and that's the expectation of the guys on that team. So, Wasn't sure they were going to kick it deep to us at all, and they did. And these guys made them pay. What's going on over there? And then these guys, Heiner, I love you. That's effort, Heiner. That's awesome. Nothing goes undone around here. Everybody gives effort. Heiner's giving effort. Make sure this is right. Go, Aaron. But
I love you, Coach.
Yeah, we didn't anticipate they kick it to us, and they did. We actually missed a block at the point of attack, but Eli Alford ended up getting 2. Bang ended up accounting for a looper that we hadn't practiced. And then obviously he just ran a little weave on the kicker, and it was pretty smooth sailing. The field position battle in the kicking game was whitewashing. They wouldn't kick it to us. I don't know that we were inside the 40 at all, other than the one he fair caught at the 31 or 2. I mean, that's what it was. Our special teams guys were awesome today.
Aaron Heiner, who's the IT guy, he
does the sound.
Somehow the microphone got kicked out. My recorder was right next to it, so that's why you didn't hear any invariability of sound from Coach Houck there. But so he was on the ground, like underneath the table, while Bobby Houck was like mid press conference because he's trying to get hooked back up so the TV guys can get the feed from the mic. And it was just hilarious. Bobby Houck's in a lot better mood after his team finishes game strong than he is at pretty much any other time.
Yes.
He even actually called himself out for that. He said, after he gave another good quote, which all his quotes were really good, which is sometimes he has a hard time
Doesn't always happen.
given the time.
Yeah.
Finding it in his heart to give the time. But he said, boy, I'm feeling good right now. You guys should ask me more questions because I'm going to be really grumpy on Monday. And he actually wasn't grumpy today either. He was actually fine.
That's good.
But anyways, Montana, what Bobby Houck said is so true, though. There's so many programs that almost never manufacture points on special teams. I think that actually Grizz fans have been spoiled because there's been so many kick and punt returns for touchdowns at Washington Grizz over the last 20 years. I mean, I would put it up there with any venue in the country with the amount there's been and all the great kick and punt returners there have been for the Grizz, too. It's a huge part of the game. If you can score points on special teams, it gives you a definitive advantage.
One last thing we got to touch on to wrap up the Montana football hour here. And if you were watching the game on your televisions or went home and watched the replay, you saw it. But they must have added an extra, 15 pounds of gunpowder or something because the cannon at Washington Grizzly Stadium was a banging away on Saturday. And normally Montana, when they score a touchdown, even in the north end zone, which is where the cannon's located, you go running off and then the extra point team comes on. Well, they had elected at one stage after the Jerry Lou and McGee touchdown to go for 2, and so everybody stayed on the field. And they SWX, who did a great job doing the game, had a zoom in on Dalton Sneed, and they fire that cannon. And I mean, you thought for a second that maybe just the air pressure alone is just about enough to take Dalton Sneed right off his cleats. I mean, he just freaked out.
The synchronicity of his full body flinch is so funny.
Just shaking. Now, if you haven't seen it, you can go to at 1029 ESPN on Twitter. We got it. We'll have it posted for you there. But it is funny. But it's also funny because you and I sitting in the press box for the entire game with a scout from the Chiefs every time, all three of us, shuddering in fear, completely like we've never heard the thing before, and then looking at each other and laughing sort of.
It's why you have to sit next to Fritz Neighbor. I hope Fritz is listening because Fritz covered the Grizz for 15 years from Missoula. And when I was a young scribe, first doing it, and then when I moved back to Missoula and I would do it, Fritz is the master of it. He is tired of getting scared and falling out of his chair, so he knows every time. And so he'll hit you and then plug his ears.
Yes.
And he never gets scared. But like we were telling the Chiefs scout, I told him I've been coming to games in this press box for 12 years, and I get scared every time. And then, of course, we still got scared. And then on top of it, the Grizz have scored 108 points in their last 2 home games, so we've had a lot of cannon shots.
Well, here was Dalton Sneed being asked about this very thing that is circulating social media.
I know you're getting ready for the 2-point conversion, but
my wife was even talking about it. I didn't see it.
Oh, it scared me big time.
Everybody thinks he's competitive. He's a big scaredy cat. Everybody knows that.
What was the question?
What have you been telling people that have been asking you about that clip?
Man, yeah, it scared me. You should have. If you were down there, man, it was so loud. I I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I always try and prepare myself for it because it happens every time that we get in the end zone. But I think maybe it's because usually it goes off when we're on the sideline. But being that we were going for 2, I was kind of locked down on where we're trying to set the ball and get our formation set. It just caught me off guard.
He's jumpy. Usually you can't hear it.
Yeah.
It's usually loud enough you don't hear it like that.
I just got to remind him of P's and Q's and remember that cannon's looming there.
The cannon is looming, and especially when you're still on the field. And, it gets you every single time. You're so enraptured in a score, and then all of a sudden you forget that the ROTC's down there. They're ready to light that torch. Anyway, go check it out at 102.9 ESPN on Twitter and enjoy yourself a little chuckle. There you go. It's the Montana Football Hour in the books. We will come back to this in the second hour. We'll go around the Big Sky as we now enter conference play. It's about time. For even the asymmetric nature of the Big Sky Conference, it's nice to get into some conference football play at the FCS level. It's a lot more interesting than a non-conference in a lot of ways, seems to me.
I think that's part of why Bobby Houck was even more engaged today, because you don't have to sit there and say anything out of turn. You just know the teams better.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have to think about Dan Hawkins. He knows Dan Hawkins.
Yeah. It's a very fair point. We will, though, on the other side, talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks losing their first game of the season to the New Orleans Saints, a home loss, and a pretty ugly game all in all for the Seattle Seahawks. So we'll get into that, talk about what happened and the prospects, the future of the Seattle Seahawks here this season. Hey, at the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and the urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. Right now, Silver Slipper is your football headquarters. They have a free shuttle to every home Grizz football game and 56 televisions to watch sports on. They also have drink specials every day, a full liquor store, and Tarantino's Pizzeria. Also, the friendliest staff in town. Silver Slipper, it has all you need to watch your favorite games. The Silver Slipper shuttle will also get you home safely for free. So hang out, watch some football, and take the shuttle home. Shuttle runs till 2 a.m. every single day. Visit the silverslipperlounge.com for more information. Stop by today and see why Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks.
Alpine Touch has been part of the fabric of Montana for more than 60 years. Decades ago, Russell Street started selling his touch of magic in whitefish. Years later, Alpine Touch's all-purpose seasoning remains a favorite. It's tailgating season, and there's no better way to spice up your grill before a Grizz game than with Alpine Touch. Go to alpinetouch.com now and use the checkout code ESPN10 for a 10% discount on your order. Alpine Touch is here to keep your mouth watering all football season. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires. You know, we've been helping keep folks safe on the road around here since 1952. That's why you can save up to $152 on a set of 4 select light truck and SUV tires during our fall tire sale. So swing by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Discount depends on tire size and type. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Northern Rockies Financials, Brian Salonen, Nick Tabor, and Jesse Ramos are happy to announce their alignment with Westpac Wealth Partners. With Westpac, you can expect the same great customer service, trusted expertise, and sound planning strategies, enhanced by this partnership with one of the fastest-growing financial organizations in the United States. From helping you plan your will to providing you with peace of mind that your wealth is secure, our experienced advisors want to learn more about you today. To schedule an appointment, call 406-728-6699 today. Westpac Wealth, striving to make your world more tax efficient.
Katie O'Keefe's has been a neighborhood favorite in the corner of the Stevens Center for years. But if you haven't been into Katie's lately, come on in and make sure to turn left. The downstairs bar is completely remodeled with one of the biggest, best spaces anywhere in Missoula to watch games, play games, and hang out with all your friends. Katie O'Keefe's is your horse racing simulcast headquarters in Missoula. Come into Katie's and turn left for cribbage, darts, pool, and much, much more. Katie O'Keefe's, where the cocktails are always cold and the people are always friendly.
Arts Missoula and Spark Arts are excited to present Cultural Mosaic, a free conference for educators and community members to learn more about cultures, the arts, and how to connect the two to increase student engagement. Attendees will learn arts integration skills and ways that cultures can be shared and embraced through the arts. Cultural Mosaic will be held Saturday, September 28th at the Alley Auditorium on the U of M campus. Learn more and register for this free conference at sparkartslearning.org.
Have you been hurt or disabled? Are you missing time from work and not sure what to do?
I'm attorney Chris Helmer, and Clark Fork Law Offices in Missoula is here to help. Our team specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. We fight for the benefits you deserve. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Hey there, Brian Tootell, Colter Nuanez, some sports news for you. Montana and Montana State each posted impressive wins to close out non-conference play Saturday afternoon. The Bobcats rushed for 449 yards, the third best total in program history, on their way to a 56-21 win over Norfolk State and Bozeman. The Grizzlies put the hammer down in the fourth quarter, executing a pair of drives in the final frame to emerge with a 47-27 win over Monmouth at Washington Grizzly. Colter, tell them about it.
Montana senior quarterback Dalton Steed completed 30 of 40 passes for 334 yards and 4 touchdowns, including a pair of touchdown passes to his tight ends, senior Colin Bingham and sophomore Bryson Deming. Montana sophomore running back Marcus Knight rushed for 21 times for 148 yards and a touchdown, as the Grizz piled up 221 yards on the ground and 579 yards of total offense. And finally, UM senior linebacker Dante Olson, 13 tackles, as the Grizz held the number 4 rushing attack in the FCS to 81 yards on the ground.
Montana State, meanwhile, rested starting running back Isaiah Ifonse and Do Everything Jr. Troy Anderson, yet still saw 3 running backs surpass the 100-yard mark for the first time in program history in the same game. Also, MSU new quarterback sophomore Tucker Rovig led the Bobcat offense to 39 first downs and 670 yards of total offense, completing 21 of 27 passes for 221 yards. The Grizzly Cats are both 3-1 in the non-conference.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law.
Again, the handoff to Carson. Pops it free. There he goes. Across the 20. He's on the run all the way out to the 30-yard line. Williams tracks him down. They said the ball was out. The officials, did they blow a whistle? The Seahawks say it was ball down. The Saints say they picked it up, and they ran it to the end zone for a touchdown. And if this stands, this will be the third fumble by Carson in as many weeks.
Not a great day for Chris Carson and the Seattle Seahawks in the main, as the Seahawks fall 33-27. Wasn't even that close. A touchdown on the final play of the game for Seattle, which is not meaningless because it's our boy Will Disley, a proud Montanan, but nonetheless, Seattle, ugly football game almost all the way around on Sunday. It is ESPN Radio. It is Tootell Nuanez. Great to be with you here. Hour number 2, we get into it, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour of the show, it's available on the podcast. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app and on iTunes and on Spotify. You can check it all out there. The podcast brought to us by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel, 329-1899. The phone number. All guests join us via the Rangage Brothers RV phone line. Colter, Russell Wilson ultimately had a big day statistically, 32 of 50 for 406 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns rushing, 51 yards on the ground. If you are a fantasy football player, you love it. This is why you hate fantasy football, Colter, because it's not representative of the truth, which was the Seahawks stunk it up. Chris Carson, 15 rushes, 53 yards, had a fumble, his third in 3 games, couldn't figure out his cleat situation.
Yeah, he was slipping. That was the weirdest thing. He slipped in the same spot of the field on consecutive carries. It was like he was on ice.
And slipped. He had 3 of his 15 carries were just him falling over. I will say Alvin Kamara also had a 1 play at least where he had the same experience. It's raining. It's Seattle. Okay. You should be prepared for that. I don't understand what was going on, why one guy in particular couldn't get his footing, but it was a bad day for him. CJ Prosise rushed the ball 4 times for 5 yards, nothing in particular to speak of there. Bad day for Rashad. Did not play in this football game. Had a tweak, I think, of a hamstring, something like that. So Rashad Penny out in this game, and a bad game for him to be out because clearly Chris Carson, it was not his day, and they certainly would have benefited from having their number 1 running back there. But in total, look, man, the mistakes are what did in the Seattle Seahawks in this football game. You talk about a fumble that was picked up in return for a touchdown, a punt return that was taken to the house. And by the way, shout out Assumption College on the punt return. And then, your defense actually plays pretty well, but your offense could get absolutely nothing going for the Seattle Seahawks. They scored 7 points in the first 3 quarters, got shut out in the second and third quarters altogether. And, look, you knew it wasn't going to be their day. When Pete Carroll gets hit in the beak with a football in the pregame, gashes his nose open. He's got not sutures, but the small butterfly
stitches. They're like or synthetic stitches.
Right. Holding his nose. By the way, over under on number of times Pete Carroll has broken his nose. 6?
I don't know, man, because he's such a lover. But I think he's a fight. I don't really think he's gotten many fights.
I don't know if it's a fight situation, but look at that schnoz, man. It's like the letter L. I mean, it's just going everywhere, but straight up and down. And I mean, I guess you're around in football long enough, you're going to catch it in the chops. So anyway,
Seahawks got whipped in this game. They scored 20 points in the fourth quarter, but I mean, it was all New Orleans.
It was. Alvin Kamara, 16 rushes, 69 yards, a touchdown, and then receiving 9 receptions for 92 yards and another score, including the one that really sealed the deal for New Orleans.
Blitz is coming. Kamara on the screen pass, and he's got a lot of room. 20, gets hit 15, 10, 5, bounces off of 2 tacklers, and he goes in. Alvin Kamara got hit twice. They had a great call, and the Seahawks had a blitz coming, and you could see that one dialed up from a mile away. And the Saints go on top 19-7 after a 29-yard touchdown on the screen pass to Kamara.
And so the question you got to ask yourself if you're a Seahawks fan is how good are the Seahawks really? They beat the Cincinnati Bengals in the first game at home, which is not a very good Cincinnati team. They won by 1. Then they go on the road. They get what feels like it should be a good win at Pittsburgh, but they get it, as Ben Roethlisberger gets injured and is now out for the year, doesn't play for 3 quarters of the football game in a game that they win by 2. And in the NFL, what? A win's a win's a win. It's so true. It's even more true in the NFL than it is in college football. If you get the W, that's all that matters. But now, Teddy Bridgewater rolls into your house, okay, and wins a football game with the New Orleans Saints. And they got great players, Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas, of course, Ted Ginn Jr. But Bridgewater, 19-27, 177-2, not a huge statistical day, but you make enough mistakes, let a special teams and a defensive touchdown go in an NFL football game, you're not going to win that football game. And Seattle had opportunities to play at a level that would have produced a win, and they could be 3-0, and they could be feeling very good about themselves. And instead, New Orleans, without the best player in franchise history, goes in and wins on the road.
Sean Payton's he still remains the best offensive coach in the league.
He is,
and that's the thing about it is even without Drew Brees, they know how to get the ball in their playmakers' hands more effectively and more prevalently than anybody in the league. Alvin Kamara, I was debating this with my brother the other day. Saquon Barkley went down last night. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle injury. He's certainly, as far as when you talk about strength, speed, athleticism, he's the best combo in the league. To me, Dalvin Cook's the most explosive running back in the league as far as his pure one-step, top speed, fast. I mean, he's 4.3 flat. He is ridiculously fast for the Vikings. Ezekiel Elliott's probably the best durability guy, the best in-between the tackles type runner. But Alvin Kamara is the most diverse player out of all those 4 guys. He is the way that they use him in the pass game is second to none in the league, and it makes them just impossible to stop because they figure out a way to get him a matchup that he's not just favored in, that he is going to win 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. Like him running that angle route over the middle right at the Mike linebacker, forget about it. That's 9 yards 100% of the time. It doesn't matter if Teddy Bridgewater or Ryan Tootell is playing quarterback. They're making money on that play.
Yeah, no doubt. Shout out Bobby Wagner, 18 tackles in this football game for Wags. Impressive. KJ Wright, by the way, 13 on his own. So the two linebackers for the Seahawks, racking up 31 tackles. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I guess I'll leave it to you to decide. The Seahawks, though, not good. Will Dissly, however, he is good. He scored yet another touchdown on Sunday.
Here's Russ from the shotgun. Now he's going to spin out of it. He's going to roll right. He's going to fire a shot in the end zone. It's caught. Will Dissly, touchdown Seahawks. That will end the game.
So last play of the game, meaningless in terms of the outcome, but Will Dissly, yet again on the radar, yet again getting it done. And a Montana, born and bred, football player, went to the University of Washington. Now he's a Seattle Seahawks playing in the NFL. Here's what he had to say in the postgame.
The final touchdown of the game you catch, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean the difference between a win and a loss, but what did it show in the team?
Yeah, I think, no matter how many seconds are left on the clock, we're going to keep fighting. We're going to try and win the game. So, I wish there was a few more seconds to get an onside kick, but, you're grateful anytime you get in the end zone for sure.
What was it about the passing game that Russ just needed you guys to come through on a couple of big plays? Not that he doesn't always, but it just seemed like today that's what kept everything going.
Yeah, Russ did an unbelievable job today. He's an unbelievable player, and it's awesome to play alongside of him. And he's our leader. We're believing in him. Every time he stepped in the huddle before a drive, we thought we were going to score. So, we're just trying to come up big for him, really.
Rain is normal in Seattle, but this is the first real game that we've had with consistent rain throughout. How much does that play any factor?
Yeah, it's tough. You think we live here, we should be accustomed to it. But haven't got a lot of practice in it. We had unbelievable fall camp. It was sunny and 75 every day, which is Seattle. It's why you move here and live here. But it's tough to practice in. And when you would think they're an indoor team that they might fumble the ball, but that was on us today, and we'll take that as a team. We'll get better. We'll work on wet ball drills, catching jugs, whatever we got to do to just be better next week.
There was a lot of fourth down opportunities, not very many conversions. What happened?
I think you got to give a little credit to the Saints. They're a good team. They're well prepared. They were hungry. Their leader went down. Drew Brees went down, so they were hungry. They took their shots when they needed to, and unfortunately, it came up big for them. But it's something we'll go back. We'll look at. We'll learn. No doubts our running game, 4th and 1. We're going to run the ball, but next week we'll convert them.
After they score on the punt return early in the game, does that change anything? Or I guess I should say, what does that change?
Yeah, I think you just have to refocus. And I think, that was kind of a lesson that we learned today, that, you can get down early and come back. And, I think, some of the new guys didn't really believe that. But, when you have 3 back there slinging it like he does, you always have a chance. And you always have to keep believing. We needed one more turnover, one more big play. And good things are going to happen. But, we'll learn from that. We're going to believe. We keep believing. We'll keep fighting. It's a long season. A lot more games left to play, and it starts next week.
Yeah, Dory, that is a good lesson to learn in week 3, as they still have a lot of football ahead.
So there you go. Will Dissly talking postgame. The one thing, man, I don't know where you stand on this when it comes to the Seahawks, but it's a twofold deal. I do think that Pete Carroll and his staff have been, over the course of his tenure, one of the best halftime / in-game adjustment coaching staffs in football. But the other thing is, they have been behind so many times and come back so many times to win football games.
Yeah.
And at some point, there's a level of expectation that's like, there's teams, when you're down 20, you go, well, not our day. In fact, most teams. It just does not happen in Seattle. And it's,
it forms a bad habit, though, right?
No, I don't think so. I think that the unmitigated belief that you're going to win the football game, regardless of how the thing's going. Can you win the game in the first quarter? No. Can you win the game in the second quarter? No. Can you win the game in the third quarter? No. Can you win the game in the fourth quarter? Yes. That's the deal. And I have this mystic perception of what the Seattle Seahawks are, and Russell Wilson specifically, when it comes to the ends of games and what it is that he knows in his heart of hearts is going to happen, that they're going to figure out a way to win even the ugliest, most god-awful looking football games through the first 3 quarters of it. And it didn't happen Saturday, and they did not deserve to win this football game in any way whatsoever. They also didn't deserve to be within 6 points. This should have been a 21-point blowout. And It was a blowout, really. I mean, the Disley thing is just frosting. I mean, there's nothing real there. But that does not change the fact that this team will never, ever, ever go away at any point in a football game. Like, that just will never happen, and I think it's to their credit.
It's definitely an interesting dynamic to analyze because is Tom Brady the greatest quarterback of all time?
Yes.
Is Tom Brady the greatest comeback quarterback of all time? Not close. It's not. He's not even in the top 5.
How would we know?
That's what I'm saying, though.
Right.
A lot of times being the comeback kid is associated with like the self-fulfilling prophecy of your inevitable Shakespearean tragedy. Like we talk about with a lot of these coaches that prophesize and then what they say is going to happen happens because they just manifest it into reality, both good and bad. It's just like John Elway. John Elway was the greatest comeback kid in the history of the NFL for a full 15 years, and it wasn't until he became a front runner that he won back-to-back Super Bowl titles.
But what's the other side of that? Phillip Rivers and newly Deshaun Watson, where you're going to get up there and you're going to play great and everything's good, and then you're going to lose at the end. And everybody knows that you're going to lose at the end, and it doesn't really matter what you do. And you can have a nice big lead, or you can be behind and coming back, but it's never really going to work out for you. Seattle, it's like it's going to work out for you.
Until it doesn't. I just wonder if it forms bad habits because I think Seattle has fallen short in the playoffs often when they can't forge the valiant comeback.
Right. I mean, they have – I mean, I remember their playoff game in Carolina 3 or 4 years ago. And, I mean, 28-0 at halftime, something like that. And they come all the way back and they lose it on the last play of the game, but the hole was too big. But I don't know if it's a habit thing. I don't think it's a habit thing. I just think it's a
habit's the wrong word, but I just think you get into it's a great mindset to have.
You're like, it's okay that we're behind because we can come back.
Exactly. It's such a similar dynamic to what happened with Montana State when they were so good at the beginning of the decade and they couldn't quite get over the top. Because if anybody ever took Denarius McGee out, everybody else on the team, they didn't know how to function without him. They were just like, dude, Denarius is just going to win us the game. Just like the Seahawks, like, well, Russell Wilson is just going to win us the game.
Mm-hmm.
They're such a similar comparison. Those two guys, they're such similar quarterbacks. I remember when the Root Sports people were doing the Bobcat games, they were the first ones. I mean, Jen Mueller, who just did that interview with Will Dissly, I remember her telling me on sidelines, she's like, he's like the shorter, small school version of Russell Wilson. He's just like Russell Wilson. And it was a great comparison then. Speaking of the Panthers, you mentioned the Panthers.
Yeah.
How about the Panthers? Have you seen? First of all, did you see the meme? You know the Cam Newton Play 60 commercial from a couple years ago, where the little kid meets him outside the bus, and he's like, "Hey Cam," he's like, "Someday I'm gonna be the Panthers quarterback." Cam's like, "Cool, man." He's like, "I'm gonna take your job, be your mom's favorite player." That meme is going around the internet now, and it said, "Who knew that this kid was Kyle O'Brien or whatever?"
Kyle Allen.
Kyle Allen. Yeah.
And by the way, they went very early in the week to announce that Cam is not going to be back again this week from his foot injury.
Yeah, it's
going to be a long recovery road for Cam Newton and his foot now that you got a player playing quarterback.
Yeah, right, no doubt. It's an interesting situation, man, because honestly, if Kyle Allen puts together one or two more good games, that's the end of Cam Newton in Carolina. It is, because you can't pay Cam Newton that. You can't. If you have a serviceable guy to replace him, you have to make the next move. That's what the NFL is going to become. This is exactly what I've been talking about for 4 months. If you have a guy who is a serviceable guy who you can pay on his rookie contract, you cannot pay Cam Newton $35 million. You cannot. Somebody else will, but you cannot if you're the Panthers.
I would just pump the brakes. They beat Arizona. We'll see what happens. By the way, next week for the Seattle Seahawks, Arizona. So presumably, even though it's a road game in the desert, a good opponent to get maybe on track. And the first, so interesting how some divisions, the NFC North open with like 2 divisional home games in some cases. And now this will be the first divisional game for the Seahawks, and we're already in week 4 against the Arizona Cardinals Sunday. By the way, don't forget Friday, 12 for the 12s, 12 minutes for the Seattle Seahawks fans, 12 for the 12s, with Michael Sean Dugar of The Athletic, covers the Seahawks for The Athletic. You will join us 5 o'clock Friday, so make sure you're there for that. Quick break, come back. Around the Big Sky. We talked about Montana, we talked about Montana State, but what else transpired in this last week of non-conference football play, including UC Davis, Montana's next opponent, on the road at the number 1 team in the land, NDSU. We'll get to that right after this. Coulter, would you like to go clean your gutters?
Nope.
Would you like to clean mine?
Nope.
Why?
Dangerous. Danger, Will Robinson.
You know why I wouldn't want to, okay? because I have confidence that I'm not going to lean too far over that ladder. Not full confidence, but enough confidence that I'm not going to go down and break my hips. But the sheer aggravation of it is enough to make me insane. That's why I'd go to Missoula Gutter Cleaning. MissoulaGutterCleaning.com online. You get yourself a muddy, mucky problem in your gutters where it's fall. The leaves are falling in there. You got to get them cleared out so there's rain's falling. You go to MissoulaGutterCleaning.com. They're going to come out. They'll give you an estimate, and then they will clean your gutters while you do something more relaxing, like, I don't know, take a nap. Just lay it out. Get horizontal. Get in front of the TV. Get out your popcorn. Go on a date. Go to a game. Go or play a round of golf, whatever you want to do. Just don't clean your gutters. Don't risk it. Don't risk the injury. Don't risk the humiliation. Don't risk the pain. Go to MissoulaGutterCleaning.com. Guess what? They'll even give you a $20 gift card to your favorite brewery or coffee shop when the work's done. It's just like that. They'll do the work and give you a present. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. MissoulaGutterCleaning.com.
Alpine Touch has been part of the fabric of Montana for more than 60 years. Decades ago, Russell Street started selling his touch of magic in whitefish. Years later, Alpine Touch's all-purpose seasoning remains a favorite. It's tailgating season, and there's no better way to spice up your grill before a Grizz game than with Alpine Touch. Go to alpinetouch.com now and use the checkout code ESPN10 for a 10% discount on your order. Alpine Touch is here to keep your mouth watering all football season. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires. You know, we've been helping keep folks safe on the road around here since 1952. That's why you can save up to $152 on a set of 4 select light truck and SUV tires during our fall tire sale. So swing by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Discount depends on tire size and type. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO beverages. Our expertly mixed cocktails, microbrews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Burning the candle at both ends? Stop by Town Pump. They've got the energy you need. Right now, Red Bull 8.4 ounces are only $3 for $5. Plus, pick up Hum Kombucha for only $2.99. Town Pump, serving our community since 1953.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up. Oh, yeah.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters. And you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com. Hey folks, Ryan Tootell here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Hey, how are you? Good evening. Hope you're well. We're doing pretty good. It's Tootell and Nuanez. Here's some sports things. Montana and Montana State each posted impressive wins to close out the non-conference play on Saturday afternoon. Bobcats rushed for 449 yards. That's the third most in program history on their way to a 56-21 win over Norfolk State. The Grizzlies put the hammer down in the fourth quarter, scoring twice in the final frame to emerge with a 47-27 win over Monmouth. Walter, tell them about that game.
UM senior quarterback Dalton Snead completed 30 of 40 passes for 334 yards and 4 touchdowns on the way to Big Sky Offensive Player of the Week. He threw 2 touchdowns each to senior tight end Colin Bingham and sophomore tight end Bryson Deming. Marcus Knight had 148 yards and a touchdown as the Grizz piled up 220 on the ground and 579 of total offense. senior Dante Olson, he piled up 13 tackles as the Grizz held the number 4 rushing attack in the FCS to 81 yards on the ground.
Montana State, they rested their starting running back, Isaiah Fonse, and do everything junior Troy Anderson, but you wouldn't know it because they still had 3 different running backs surpass the 100-yard mark. That's the first time in program history that's happened. And MSU sophomore Tucker Rovig, he got the start over Casey Bauman. He led the Bobcat offense to 39 first downs and 670 yards of total offense. He had 21 of 27 passes for 221 yards and 4 touchdowns. Lane Sumner, Shane Perry, Logan Jones each had 100 yards on the day. Montana and Montana State 3-1 through the non-conference as they head into Big Sky Conference play.
There's a place off Ocean Avenue where I used to sit and talk with you. We were both 16 and it felt so right. Sleeping all day, staying up all night. Staying up all night.
I just don't know how you rank this band so poorly. It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio.
That's not the point. The
2001,
point is,
bro.
The point
this is like going way back.
The point is that you don't rank the other bands in this genre properly.
That is not true. I do not rank them highly, primarily. It is Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Great to be with you on this Monday afternoon. Hope you're having a fantastic day. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can also find us on the World Wide Web if you're looking for it, 1029ESPN.com. And we got a bunch of stuff there, podcasts, news, pictures. And also, you can listen live on the Listen Live tab via the stream. The stream's available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. And want to remind everybody, talked about this at the top of the hour, but again, Wednesday, we're bringing it to you. The FCS Speculators, a betting podcast with a Vegas eye on the Big Sky and FCS. Coulter and I going to open things up. We'll even take your Twitters or your emails or your Instagrams. That's what they're called, right? And we'll filter through some of those things and give you the information you want, the games that you're looking for. And we'll take a look at the spreads, the lines, the over-unders, the numbers, and take a look at it from the FCS level, and especially the Big Sky Conference, because there's not a lot of that out there, and it's fun to do. It's a fun entry point to talk football, which is what we're going to do. So the brand new podcast, FCS Speculators, coming to you starting Wednesday. Coulter, let's take a look around the Big Sky Conference, brought to us by SkylineSportsMT.com. Montana and Montana State, both winners. The game of the weekend at the national level for the FCS was certainly UC Davis, the number 4 team in the nation, at North Dakota State. Speaking of lines, I think this game was like 22 points or something like that. I think you and I both said that UC Davis we thought would do better than that, even though we picked them to lose. I had them down 17. Well, they made it very respectable. They lost by 9, 26-17. They were ahead in this football game. At 26-17 against North Dakota State at Fargo. I mean, it's hard to stand there and cheer for a loss if you're UC Davis, but I mean, the UC Davis fan base has got to. It's such an odd stamp of solidifying who you are to lose by 9 at Fargo and go, bang, here we are. We know we're this good. You know what I mean? Because that's the sort of barometer that the Bison have created at the FCS level.
No doubt. I mean, UC Davis, they got 19 first downs. They had 422 yards of total offense. Those are huge wins.
Huge.
They had the ball. They're down 20-16 with the ball, 3 minutes and 40 seconds to go. And then Jake Mayer threw an interception on third down, and NDSU takes over a right near the red zone, about 20, 25 yards from pay dirt. And then on a 3rd down and 7, Trey Lance lowers his shoulder, bam, 11-yard touchdown, game, set, match. But the fact that they were
they're driving for a go-ahead score.
This is how ridiculous North Dakota State's run has been. They were the first team in 3 years that was in the game in Fargo in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. The first team to be even in the game in the fourth quarter. So it's a huge testament to them. I think that they played better on defense than I thought they would. I mean, they only allowed 16 first downs. They only allowed, that's another gauge of how ridiculous North Dakota State is. They held them under 200 yards rushing. That's the first time they've been held under 200 yards rushing in 30-plus games. So,
and that's I think that's maybe the most critical thing, because when you think about UC Davis, you think about what? The offense. Great offense, the great quarterback, the great schemes they have. To hold NDSU to under 200 rushing, that is a testament, man, to the skill and also the toughness. And when you think about UC Davis in the offense and the passing game, it doesn't usually go with, gritty, tough-nosed rush defense. That's exactly what they were on Saturday, though, and it's they are going to be a very tall task for the Montana Grizzlies on Saturday, which we'll talk a lot about this game throughout the course of the week.
Eastern Washington sort of created this new model of how to play defense paired with a really high-powered offense. It's not a unique evolution to Eastern Washington. It's happening across the country. I think teams are realizing when you run the spread, and this is something that was just absolutely to the demise of Bob Stitt. If you run the spread and then you try to run this negative yardage-based offense, or based defense, where you just prioritize selling out for tackles for loss, like Montana did under Jason Seymour, you're going to have such a feast or famine style, because when you're rolling, you might score 60 points. But when you don't, you're going to give up so many big plays when teams can hit against that. I mean, look at the quarterback draw play that the Cats ran for 2 years against that defense, just gashing them. And Eastern Washington realized, all right, if we're going to be that team that runs the spread and tries to score 45 points per game, the number one priority we have to make defensively is on the defensive secondary. We have to play man, and we have to figure out a way to force turnovers, because then it doesn't matter if you give up 28 points per game. If you get 2 takeaways, 2 extra possessions for your offense, you'll win by 14 to 21 points every time, because you have that level of confidence in your ability to score touchdowns offensively. More possessions, you will win because you'll stay out ahead. You'll always have an extra possession if you can force 2 to 3 turnovers a game. Davis has taken that model and run with it. Davis actually has probably 2 of the best cover corners in the league. They're not going to have one of the top pass rushing guys. That's just not the way that their recruiting model is catered to. They're not going to have a Bryce Stirk. They're not going to have really a Dante Olson, but they can go get an Isaiah King like they have right now. They can go get elite DBs. And when you do that, then all of a sudden now you can match up on the perimeter. You can win the possession game. So UC Davis has made – everybody talks about this resurrection under Dan Hawkins, and not even really a resurrection, an emergence for the first time as a Division I member for UC Davis. And it is. It's all about Hawk, and it's all about Tim Plow, the offensive coordinator. It's all about Jake Mayer, the quarterback, Keelan Doss, the receiver. The reason that UC Davis won 10 games last year, those guys all they all lived up to expectations, to be certain. But UC Davis won 10 games last year because of the improvements on their offensive line and their defensive secondary. That's why they were a 10-win team that shared the Big Sky title. And they show that in Fargo. They show that they can go toe-to-toe with a team that has a completely opposite identity than they do.
Absolutely. Well, UC Davis, even with the loss, no change in the FCS poll, Stats FCS poll. They're still number 4 in the nation after the loss there at Fargo. Weber State, they had a bye this week, so they are still number 6. Montana State, they move up 1 spot to number 7 with their win, 56-21. The biggest mover was a move down in what, to me, was the biggest shocker in a long time at the in the Big Sky Conference, even though it wasn't technically a conference game. Eastern Washington got rolled up in the first half by Idaho. I mean, that is as bad a look for Eastern Washington as you could possibly have, to be down 21-0 to Idaho at Idaho. And yet they were.
And it got to 28-0.
It was 28 nothing at halftime. Sorry, 28-0 at halftime, yes. Eastern Washington came back, but ultimately lost the game 35-27. Good. I mean, congratulations to Idaho. I thought this, not just this game, but I thought this season was potentially a no-for the Idaho Vandals, the way that they were going through the first 3 games. But they showed some moxie, and against what I thought Eastern Washington was going to be down, relatively speaking, but a team that I certainly thought was, a top, absolutely top 25 team in the nation, and still a very, very good team with a great quarterback and still rolling with a bunch of dudes and everything. But this has to be shaking for Aaron Best and the Eastern Washington Eagles about what they are and what they're about. And I didn't see this game. I don't know how it kind of got to that point. But in any case, they drop from 11 coming off their loss at Jacksonville State down to 21. Now, I know that they suffered several injuries at Jacksonville State, particularly the linebackers, and that is always going to be a factor. But the reality is, you losing at Idaho is at this very moment looks like a horrendous loss. Maybe Idaho all of a sudden pulls it out of the fire and is better than what we thought, and maybe residual FCS, or FBS recruits, prove that, they're interested and want to play and all of that. Great win for Idaho, winning against a top 11 team in the country. A huge win, I think, for Mike Petrino and Paul Petrino. Excuse me, Paul Petrino and the identity of that team. But nonetheless, a surprise. It's just a complete surprise to me on this one.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Ojo, who's Eastern Washington's best defensive player, was out. He was on crutches all week. Not sure what the exact injury is. It's an ankle of some sort. Not sure how severe it is.
Yeah.
Jack Settleback who's also probably their second best linebacker and probably one of their three best defensive players. He was on the sideline as well. Justice Warren, who's a former 4-star recruit who transferred to Eastern Washington from the University of Washington. He has missed all 3 games so far this season with an injury. And so they're shorthanded to be sure. But Aaron Best, after the game, Eastern Washington third-year head coach, he said, I'm not going to worry about the bodies we don't have. At 28-0, they completely dictated the tempo and kept Eric Berrier, Eastern's quarterback, where they needed to. Credit their defensive game plan. It was exceptional, and they ran the ball better. They ran the ball much better than us, and they were way more consistent with it. That's not a winning formula. So Idaho, despite Eastern Washington being shorthanded, also just out-schemed them. It sounds like they had a great plan to keep Berrier in check. Berrier did not get loose in the pocket whatsoever. He threw a bad interception in the first quarter, and then he also had a bad fumble in the second quarter. So 2 turnovers, that's how you get down 28-0.
Well, he still threw for 365 yards and 2 touchdowns. He still ran for 2 other touchdowns. But Eastern Washington held as a team under 100 yards, 95 yards on the ground. And Aaron Best, he wants nothing to do with that. This is a guy, a former offensive lineman who wants to rush the football. Meanwhile, Idaho goes for 223 as a team. I mean, they have a huge day. That's on the ground, by the way, rushing. A huge day rushing. So, Paul Petrino finding it out in a great mix between rush and pass. I mean, they had ultimately 47 rush attempts to 31 pass attempts. And Mason Petrino, very efficient, 22-31 for 240 yards, 2 scores. He had an interception as well. But an equally sided great win for Idaho and terrible loss for Eastern Washington.
I did not vote for Eastern Washington in my top 25 poll this week. I dropped them completely out.
I mean
they're 0-3 against Division I competition.
Right.
Yeah, you got to win a D1 game before you're getting my vote, no doubt.
Just quickly running through the rest of it. By the way, Eastern Washington 1-3 now on the season. South Dakota beats Northern Colorado 14-6 in the Ho-Hum Bowl. Northern Iowa beat Idaho State 13-6. That's a much more interesting game, especially on the road at UNI. UNI now 2-1. Idaho State keeping it close, but just ultimately couldn't score. I mean,
they're
2 field goals.
They're up 6-3 late in the game. I think what we've learned the last 2 weeks, though, is that Idaho State's defense is much better than people thought they were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
They gave up 31 to Utah, which I think preseason we were laughing saying that could be 60 to nothing.
Yeah.
And they gave up then 13 to Northern Iowa. They're playing a lot better than I think a lot of people thought.
Portland State pounding Eastern Oregon, obviously stepping down, but 59-9. By the way, go ahead.
Tease for tomorrow, Bruce Barnum, Portland State head coach, will join us on the show. Great, not just the best interview in college football. like you were saying, got to have that dump button ready because you have no idea where this thing might be going.
Yeah.
But Portland State is the mystery of the Big Sky to me because Portland State has not played an FCS team. They played 2 FBS and 2 D2s.
Right.
So we don't know where we're at with Portland State.
Well, they're 2-2, as you might expect. They played close with Arkansas. Did you see what happened this weekend?
What did Arkansas do?
Lost to San Jose State in Arkansas.
So Arkansas is not good.
Oh, boy. I mean, pining for the days of Brett Bielema.
That's my favorite thing, though, is when a school has the "what have you done for me lately" attitude and then fires a coach that maybe is out of their league, and then they just suck.
And then just implode.
And it's like, well, you got what you deserved.
I don't know.
Not that Brett Bielema is some bastion of morality or anything like that, but he's a better coach than the dude they have now.
Well, if I think that I could find maybe somebody around here from Arkansas who might know something about this and just tell them how bad their football team is. Okay, Illinois State did beat Northern Arizona 40-27. NAU is Montana State's upcoming opponent to open Big Sky play. This game at Illinois State. Illinois State, obviously, a very formidable football team in the FCS and a good history, but they're now 3-1. Northern Arizona 2-2. And then the last game that I was very interested in this game, the evening, Fresno State hosting Sacramento State. Fresno State wins by 2 touchdowns, 34-20. But again, a good showing for Sacramento State, and I think they are a real sleeper in this Big Sky Conference this season. They're going to win some games and maybe upset the apple cart a little bit, as it were.
I'm so excited to ask. We're going to have Bruce Barnum on this week. We're going to have Jay Hill from Weber State on Thursday. We're also going to have Dan Hawkins from UC Davis on Wednesday. So a little Big Sky Conference preview of some of the top coaches in the Big Sky Conference. But I'll tell you one question I am going to ask each one of them is, how do you expect the fact that almost everybody in the league played an FBS and more than half the league played 2 to affect the level of play? Because I do think that if you can make it out of those games healthy, if you're Sac State and you know that you went 19-7 against Arizona State, you were in the game the entire time, and then you come out and you only lose by 2 touchdowns to Fresno State, when that's your final tune-up, now then you go play your first conference game, they're not even close to as talented as the FBS team you just played, so maybe the game is slowed down to you. How's it going to affect the level of play? I think it's an interesting dynamic this year that we haven't seen in several years.
That is our look around the Big Sky Conference, brought to us by SkylineSportsMT.com. Quick break. We'll come back. We'll take a look around the prep slate this weekend. A huge weekend in high school football around the state of Montana. And how long has it been since 2 teams at the AA level in Missoula were combined to be 7-0? It's been a long time. Well, guess what? It has now happened. We'll tell you exactly how right after this. Hey, I've been telling you about this. Why don't you come hang out with me? Would you? October the 10th, that's a Thursday, from 6 till 9:30 p.m. at the Barn on Mullen out there near the Ranch Club. Beautiful facility out there. We're going to have an auction of professional tennis players to benefit the Watson Children's Shelter, okay? We're going to do it for a good cause out there on October the 13th. Come out that evening and enjoy a fun night, an auction of professional tennis players, and then have a tennis pro-am the entire rest of the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be a ton of fun. Doubles tournament play with a pro. So you think you're a good tennis player? Get yourself better with a pro. Go out there, pick the best player that you can find, put up some money to benefit a great entity in this community in the Watson Children's Shelter, and have a ton of fun. Full breakfast bar on Saturday and Sunday. There's a lunch on Saturday as well as a tour of Watson Children's Shelter. There's going to be, of course, refreshments, snacks, everything you need to play at your best over the course of the weekend. And Saturday evening, a hosted VIP party for you and a guest to meet all the pros as well. Complimentary professional photograph with the pro when you get one. So come out and be a part of the auction, benefit a great cause. Online, watsonchildrensshelter.org. watsonchildrensshelter.org. You're going to get info and tickets there. There's also going to be a silent auction. You're going to be able to get that online when you text for the kids, number 4, and then the word the kids, for the kids, to 71760. It begins on October 4th. So you can be online and texting, see what the items are that are being auctioned off, and put your auction bid in early and often. Get there. But come out. I'll look forward to being out there. I'm emceeing this, so we'll get some people auctioned off to all of you, to the community, for a great and fun, entertaining pro-am tournament over the weekend, and benefiting a great cause. Again, October 10th. That's a Thursday from 6 to 9:30 at the Barn on Mullen for Watson Children's Shelter.
If you're looking for a charming neighborhood hideaway, come into Katie O'Keefe's. Located in the corner of the Stevens Center, Katie's has an inviting atmosphere with ample parking in a location that's easy to get to and hard not to love. With drink specials every night of the week, including Tequila Tuesdays and Whiskey Wednesdays, offering $3 premium cocktails. Katie O'Keefe's is the welcoming, warm hangout you've been looking for. Come in to Katie O'Keefe's, where the drinks are always cold and the people are always friendly.
Hey folks, Ryan Tootell here, and I'm with Josh of the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, what are people left dealing with after an accident?
Well, quite a few things, actually. We see people that are in pain, they still need to get to work, they need to raise their kids, and now they have to take time to go see doctors and other healthcare providers. They're frustrated with working with the insurance companies and getting the runaround. We'll take on the burden of dealing with the insurance companies so you can get the best settlement possible and get back to your life.
Find your advocate online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
The big skies are open. Go wild with Opportunity Reward Checking. Go ahead, jump, dance, shout. Opportunity Reward Checking will make you do that. Go wild when you get your 1% cash back on qualified debit card purchases. It all starts with an Opportunity Reward Checking account from Opportunity Bank. Visit a branch today to get started. Then go wild and spend your 1% cash back however you want. Go wild with Reward Checking from Opportunity Bank. Some restrictions may apply. Member FDIC.
The biggest reason fall is the Desperados' favorite season of all, the return of those wonderfully spirited UM students, of course. Okay. So football is the real reason the Desperado gets pumped about fall, but you can't have college ball without college, right? So this season, the Desperado is bringing the best of both worlds together with live broadcast of Montana college football and all your favorite college football teams, along with Missoula's best hot wings and coldest beer. Fall has arrived, and there's more than one reason to celebrate at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell, across from the Y.
Hi, this is Michael Egg, Artistic Director at Montana Repertory Theater. If you loved our season opener, Go Please Go, or even if you missed it but still want to see the rest of the season, you're in luck. Season ticket packages are still on sale for just $70. That's $70 for 3 more innovative and exciting shows, including our production of War of the Worlds in January. Go to montanarep.com to get your tickets today.
Get ready to sing, dance, and laugh until your cheeks hurt with the interactive, unforgettable Dueling Pianos show, October 19th at the UC Ballroom. Dueling Pianos is a gala benefiting Montana children, and you can help by purchasing tickets at montanahope.org. Guests will enjoy a lively evening of dueling pianos, hors d'oeuvres, silent auctions, and raffles. All proceeds will benefit the Montana Hope Project and Catholic Social Services of Montana. Kids 10 and under are free. Learn more and purchase tickets at montanahope.org.
Tootell and Nuanez. Listen to the podcast on the TuneIn Radio app or on iTunes. 1029ESPN.com.
Always a fun show on a Monday. Talking football coming out of the weekend. Monday Night Football tonight. Washington, Chicago. All right. It's Tootell Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Hi, how are you? Great to be with you. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the show, you can check it out on the podcast. The podcast available all the time, everywhere. That's the beauty of a podcast. Well, I guess by everywhere, I mean just wherever podcasts live. I mean, it's not available at, like, the Orange Street Food Farm. I mean, it is. If you're there with your phone, sure, yeah, of course. Anyhow, check out the podcast. It's available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Coulter, let's take a look around the high school football ranks in our Prep Extra segment presented by Farmers State Bank. Sentinel goes to Helena Capital. Helena Capital, the favorite in this football game, especially at home. The Class AA ranks appeared to have a separation of a top tier involving 3 teams. The third of those teams, Helena Capital and Sentinel, even though they were undefeated, being kind of thought of in that second tier, well, no longer, because Sentinel went up to Helena Capital and got the win and is now 4-0.
28-14, great defensive effort there by Missoula Sentinel, and it's so interesting how some of this stuff works. Sentinel was building towards last year for 3 years. Rylan Ort, Elias DeWaters, Jace DeWalt, all those guys were 3-year starters, guys that really showed flashes as sophomores and then won a playoff game as juniors. And they come in as seniors, huge expectations. Then they lose not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 games by a score or less.
Yes.
And they finished 5-5 and missed the playoffs, even though they were literally 6 or 7 plays away from being 8-2 or 9-1. They were in every single game to the very end. And then all those guys now, Elias DeWaters and Jace DeWalter playing for the Grizz, Rylan Ort's playing for the Bobcats. So you think, okay, well, you lose 3 Division I players. There's no way you're going to be as good as you were a year ago. Now these kids are really parlaying that disappointment of last year and using it as motivation. It's a great start for the Spartans.
Well, and obviously the addition of Jackson Lee helpful to that end
no
as
doubt.
Well. Another game in Missoula, Hellgate on their homecoming beats Flathead, and the Hellgate Knights are 3-0 for the first time since 1987. The Knights 3-0, and they also obviously have an outstanding player in Raleigh Wooster. But good for Hellgate, man. It just makes me happy every time they win a football game, given what they've gone through for the last 5 15 years. Those kids deserve to have something good happen, and something good is happening. They have not had, admittedly, the toughest schedule to start the season in terms of the teams that they've played.
Totally.
But nonetheless,
they can't overstate momentum, though. They haven't had momentum in 20 years.
Ever. So to be 3-0 and to win your homecoming football game, it's outstanding. We had Mick Morris on the roundtable last week. Great to have him, and it's exciting what he has been up to and what this team has been up to. And now as the road gets a little bit steeper in terms of the competition, they are unblemished, and that is a great thing for Hellgate.
Raleigh Worcester commits to Utah State, and then a couple hours later goes out and gets 4 total touchdowns, threw 2 and rushed for 2. So he's turned it up. Mick Morris said last week on the roundtable that he thinks he's the best football player in the state of Montana, and at this point, it's hard to argue. There's a lot of other guys that are certainly in the mix, but Raleigh Worcester is right there. Another guy that's in the mix is Tommy Malott. He continues his absolutely outstanding senior year. Butte High, they're undefeated. They're number 2 in the state again this week. So great effort by the Bulldogs as they continue to roll. A couple other notable performances. Manhattan toppled Missoula Loyola here in Missoula 26-14. So the Rams 2-2 head into conference play. Granted, though, their 2 losses are to the number 1 and number 2 teams in the state at the Class B level. So Loyola will be back. They have a lot of great athletes at Loyola right now, but I know it's been a little bit of a learning experience just in terms of what they're trying to do defensively. But probably the most surprising result of the weekend, Dillon takes down Hamilton. Dillon, a 26-25 win over Hamilton, knocks the Bronx out of the number 1 spot in Class A.
It's almost never that you can say Dillon at home is an underdog, but such was the case.
Well,
right?
the Gatorade Player of the Year plays at Hamilton High School. That's
right.
Carson Rostad. So anytime you knock him off, that's big time. But there's a big showdown coming this week as well. Frenchtown was up 49-0 and got a running clock in the second half against Steve I in a 49-13 win. So the Bronx are undefeated. I voted them number 2 in this week's Treasure State Media poll on our behalf. And now you got Hamilton coming off a loss against Frenchtown, which has won 4 straight next week. It'll be a big game.
It's going to be huge.
Bronx versus Bronx.
And the bigger now for Hamilton, now that they have endured that loss as well. But that'll be a fun one, certainly, to keep an eye on. So there you go. It's our Prep Extra segment. It's presented by Farmers State Bank. Farmers State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907. And now link up with the MyCard app. Turn your card off from anywhere you are. You lose it. You can't find it. Safe, secure, instant. MyCard app. Farmers State Bank. FarmersStateBank.com. Coulter, a couple minutes left. Monday Night Football tonight. The Chicago Bears are in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, for Monday Night Football. They are a road favorite, 5.5-point favorite. The Redskins are 0-2. Chicago is 1-1, a controversial win against Denver last week, but a win nonetheless. Adrian Peterson going to be toting the rock, as it were, for Washington. Washington is not good, but Case Keenum has played again, better than people think that he should be playing. And I think, to your point, the Bears are dangerously close to being 0-2 against 2 teams that really no one knows how. I mean, people don't think Denver's any good, and people have no idea if the Packers are any good. Early returns, even though they're 3-0, are questionable at best. This Chicago team has not been good the first 2 weeks, period. And even though they got a lock-it-up defense, and their defense is the real deal, they got some issues to work through. I got Washington losing but covering in this one as a 5.5-point home dog.
That's what I think I picked as well.
Yeah?
Early on in the week. Yeah, I guess last week it would be. But I'm telling you, man, the Bears are one of my free fallers. They're going to be a team that does not live up to expectations and not live up to their performance a year ago.
Well, on behalf of all humanity, I hope you're right. You know? The Bears fans in this community, and there's a lot of them, they just got to hate this. I mean, you a Viking fan and me a Packer fan, and we just tag team on them, and they can't even speak up for themselves.
And it's the only fandom I really have. And I enjoy seeing the Bears lose so much.
Well, I don't know if it's going to happen tonight, but it'll be fun to watch anyways. Have a great night, boys and girls. See you tomorrow.
Hey folks, Ryan Tootell, and I'm here with Josh of The Advocates. Josh, do most injury accidents end up in court?
Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court through a fair negotiation with an insurance company. However, sometimes it is necessary. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair settlement. Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court with a fair negotiation with the insurance company. However, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get the right settlement for you.
It's Josh at The Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden-fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Northern Rockies Financials Brian Salonen, Nick Tabor, and Jesse Ramos are happy to announce their alignment with Westpac Wealth Partners. With Westpac, you can expect the same great customer service, trusted expertise, and sound planning strategies enhanced by this partnership with one of the fastest-growing financial organizations in the United States. From helping you plan your will to providing you with peace of mind that your wealth is secure, our experienced advisors want to learn more about you today. To schedule an appointment, call 406-728-6699 today. Westpac Wealth, striving to make your world more tax efficient.
Katie O'Keefe's is revamped, remodeled, and ready to become your go-to sports bar in Missoula. Located in the Stevens Center, Katie's offers special drink specials every night of the week, including mixed shots for $1 off every Monday Night Football. On Thursdays, pitchers of your favorite microbrew are just $11. Katie's is a great spot to watch the Grizz game on Saturdays, NFL on Sundays, and if you want to bring your own food, you can. Whether you watch the Grizz or the NFL from coast to coast, come to Katie O'Keefe's, Missoula's neighborhood football headquarters.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals